Right. Up to 20,000 Irish people flock to Medjugorje every year, and some are seeking to be healed, some are simply looking for spiritual enlightenment. Some report experiences of miracles, and some speak of supernatural visions. So I'd like you to meet two people here in the audience. We have Maureen Marr and her daughter Louise Hall. You're very welcome. And Maureen, you were one of the first people to take a number of, I suppose, tourists, if you want to call them that, pilgrims out to see things happening in Medjugorje. And when you were there, you did see something extraordinary. Would you share what you saw with us?
I will, Ryan, but I don't want you to think I'm a visionary or anything like that. I'm just an ordinary house.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
I'm grandmother, and I'll share my story with you.
Please do.
When I was there one of the times, I was outside St. James's Church, and there were a group of pilgrims looking up at the sky, the sun, and even though I was afraid to look up because I figured, you know, my eyes would be affected, I did anyway. And instead of the sun, I saw the host. And it came down towards me, and right in the centre were the letters IHS. And then I saw a cross which seemed to fill the sky. And it was surrounded by lights. And there appeared then an image of Padre Pio. And then finally I saw a dove, and transformed into the image of Our Lady, and she came down towards me, and I felt this tremendous sense of peace and love, and that has stayed with me always.
And how long did that whole experience take?
I suppose it took about maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes.
Did it feel longer when you were there?
It was very quick. It did, and I just wanted to see more.
Sure.
But it disappeared.
And when you were you frightened, by the way, when that happened?
No, I wasn't.
You weren't kind of freaked out or scared by seeing all
I knew
these
it was
things?
something supernatural
that
I was experiencing.
Okay.
And I was actually down on my knees, and I just wanted to see more.
Yeah.
And I wasn't in ecstasy or anything. I was just normal.
Because, you know, do you remember when some people were talked about before watching, say, a moving statue? And I know it's not the same thing. And they said that if you looked at the sun for too long, that your eyes would play tricks on you, or, you know, that you might be seeing things that simply aren't there. Do you believe what you saw was very much there, very vivid, very real, almost to
Yes, well, I know it sounds incredible, but for me, it was very real.
Okay. Very good. Louise, you have rosary beads with you. They don't belong to you. They belong to a lady who's a little shy to come and tell us her story this evening, which we understand completely. Would you tell us what the significance of these rosary beads is?
Yeah, sure. These beads belong to a lady called Una Keneally, who's been to Medjugorje several times. And on one of her visits when she was over there, she was in the grounds of St. James's Church. And a little girl of about 7 came running out of the church saying, "Mommy, Mommy, my silver beads have turned gold." And this memory stuck in Una's head, so that when she went back to Dublin, she decided she was going to get herself a pair of beads to bring over with her. She knew she'd be going again. Yeah. So she went into a little religious shop in Clarendon Street near the church, and she bought the cheapest pair of silver beads. And she said she put them under her pillow, and sometimes she would pray with them. She went over to Medjugorje about 8 months later, and after confession, she was sitting in the grounds of St. James's Church. And a woman beside her said, "I think my husband's beads have changed colour." She took her own beads out, and as you can see, they turned this gold colour.
So they were silver on purchase and gold after, what, do you think, something miraculous or...
Well, this is not the only story of rosary beads turning gold. This happened a lot in the early days, in the 80s and the 90s in Medjugorje. And many people still have their beads. And I suppose maybe it's symbolic of the richness of her faith, because she was praying on them and she felt so much over there and a closeness to God over there. But these beads, this would have been back in the 80s or the late 80s, early 90s, and they're still that colour today. Have you
been to Medjugorje a few times yourself?
Yeah, I've been to Medjugorje.
Did you ever see the visions as described by Maureen?
No, I haven't seen anything out of the ordinary. The only experience I would have had was last August, but it was seen by many people, and that was on the Feast of the Assumption, the 15th of August. During the consecration at Mass, people were looking up at the sky, and I was saying, what are they looking at? And there was a huge crucifix in the sky. Now, people could say it was a cloud formation or it was the contrails of a plane, But when you're there staring at this, it was perfectly symmetrical, and it was like it was illuminated and balancing. And people took pictures and it came out.
So you believe that?
But I wasn't the only person. There were everyone that was in the grounds of the church.
And was Maureen, the one that you described, the host emerging from the sun, did you ever see anything else along those lines when you were over there?
Well, I had 2 experiences, and the other one was at the Blue Cross, which is at the base of Apparition Hill, and Our Lady appears there regularly. Well, what I saw was, it was a very still day, and there was a little kind of a handkerchief on the branch of the tree, and it was moving gently, and I had a vision of Our Lady, but she was crying, and the tears were trickling down my cheeks as well, and I saw popes, cardinals, bishops, and later on...
Where were they?
Well, it was like they were in a park.
This was in the sky or on the ground?
No. This was at the Blue Cross.
At the cross, and they were walking around this cross.
They were walking around. They were all walking around, and they were very real, very human. And I often, with the challenges that the church was going through, I often reflect back on that vision.
And what about people who are very sceptical, who don't have religion, don't have the same faith as you, who think your eyes are playing tricks on you? How do you square things with people who feel that way?
Well, everyone's entitled to their opinion, Ryan. Yeah. And for me, like, those 2 experiences were very real. And there are a lot of people, and I'm not the only one who has had spiritual experiences in Medjugorje.
Sure.
You know, there are people who've had extraordinary spiritual experiences.
Many of them are watching the programme tonight, by the way, and we've spoken to them on different programmes. So, as you say, horses for courses.
Exactly.
But thanks for sharing your story with us, because we have Damien Richardson and David Parks who join us this evening. I'd like to welcome you to the show, gentlemen. It's nice to see you too, because you both have stories that involve Medjugorje and what, I suppose, influence that place, a very special place to so many people, has had on you. So if I could start with you, Damien, and you know, your first trip to this place, and what brought you there?
Yeah, well, I didn't choose to go, you know. I grew up in a good family, a good loving home, you know.
Yeah.
In the early days, I caught up in the rave culture. I got addicted to ecstasy. Shortly after that, I got addicted to heroin as well, you know. My father was a good man of faith. He was always praying, you know. And someone showed him a video of Medjugorje, you know. And on the video, there was 2 American girls. And they had been addicted to drugs, and they went to Medjugorje and got healed, you know. Yeah. So my dad was thinking, right, I have to get down into Medjugorje, you know.
I'd say you weren't a willing participant at that stage, were you?
It wasn't on my list of things to do, to be honest, at that age, you know.
So how did he get you over there?
Basically, I had to come out of prison, I did, you know, that way. And
you came out of prison at that stage, right?
Yeah, I was had to come out of prison. And,
what were you in for?
Just petty crimes and that, you know.
Feed the habit?
Yeah, the addiction leads to that, you know.
I understand.
And he showed me all these brochures of the lovely Croatian beach and all the lakes and all. And he says, a little chapel there, but couldn't trick me into going, you know.
Okay.
So I kind of let him down a few times. I was always lying to him and let him down. So I felt I had home to go, you know that way.
So you got, well, let's get to the airport first. Dublin Airport.
Yeah, I would have been taking drugs before I went on the plane, you know that way. That was the life I was leading, you know.
So you were very committed to your narcotic life at that stage. You get to Medjugorje eventually. What was your epiphany? What was your moment?
Yeah, first got there, Jamie, like the drugs was wearing on me and that, and just said, Jamie, what am I doing here, you know that way. I didn't sleep for the first 4 nights. Weather was very hot, you know that way, the effects of the drugs. And I was walking around the village the 4th night. There was a beautiful statue of a lady in the main street. Yeah. And there's a bench there. And I got about half an hour's sleep. It was about 5 o'clock in the morning. But I woke up that morning and had a beautiful sense of peace in my heart. Something very profound I've never experienced before or after, you know. And it was like illumination of conscience or something. It was a deep impact on my life, you know.
So when you got back to Ireland, were you able to maintain that sense of change, or did you go off the rails again? What happened to you?
Well, it was just to jump back to Medjugorje. That day in particular, I met a lovely person, Billy Connors from Wexford, and he brought me the confession. That was a big thing for me. I had a great experience that week, you know. Yes. When I did come back to Dublin, I was going with a girlfriend. I fell back into the whole drug situation, you know that way. Okay, and yourself and your then girlfriend, Mary, you were both on drugs, on heavy drugs. Yeah, we were on drugs, we were, and as I said, something had changed to me in Medjugorje, and I wanted to come off the drugs. So I went to my doctor, and he put me on Forceptone, and he changed it to methadone.
Right.
So I was on it for 6 years. It was a methadone program, you know.
What happened in 2002?
Basically, just, as I said, myself and the girlfriend, we were on drugs. We had our first child. She was born a methadone baby. It would have been 2002. Because of the methadone, I felt very depressed and very suicidal, and then just gave up hope to live, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
It was just like basically just on a slow way to death, you know. And I just went to my mother and my sister and said, listen, I can't do this anymore. I feel very suicidal. So within 3 days, I had ended up back in Medjugorje again, you know.
Yeah, and you went to the house there that...
Yeah, one of the fruits of Medjugorje, there was an Italian nun, Mother Elvira, and she started a community for drug addicts. She's 60 houses around the world, and one of the main houses in Medjugorje, you know.
Yeah.
So I went up to the house, and the lads there, I told him my story, you know. And he said, listen, he says, the drugs is not the problem. He says, they'll always be there. You're the problem. You have to change your life, you know.
And it changed your life, because you have... How many children do you have now?
Yeah, well, blessed. We have 7 children of our own and 1 foster child. So 8 kids in the house now at the moment, you know.
And you've been clean how many years?
I'm clean 11 years now. My wife is clean 10 years, thank God, you know.
And are you a big religious family?
Well, I'm a practicing Catholic, so I love my Catholic faith. I love the history of it, you know, that way of say the rosary, bring the kids to Mass, and, you know, I don't know angels sitting here, but I do my best, you know, that way.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that too. Yeah. So do you pray together as a family?
Oh, yeah, we pray the rosary every night and really get blessings from it, you know.
Good stuff. You got married in, what, 2005?
2005, we got married. We went back to Medjugorje for their honeymoon.
Yeah.
Started my own business. And, yeah, life is good at the moment, too.
Oh, okay, well, it's a great story, because obviously you came out of a very, very dark place, and as you say, now things are working much better for you. David, thank you for joining us this evening, because you had what's called Crohn's disease. A lot of people watching will know what we're talking about. For those who don't, maybe you'd explain what it is.
Most debilitating illness. Cramping, vomiting, diarrhea, constant pain. Constant pain.
And in 1989, the doctors pretty much gave you
2 weeks to live, yeah.
2 weeks to live.
Yeah.
And what were you thinking at that point?
Well, there were many thoughts going through my mind, but the biggest thought was with regards to my son Ken, who was born with cystic fibrosis. And that's all I was worried about. I wasn't worried about David Parks. And it was really difficult, and particularly financially as well. Because I'm a professional soccer player in my early youth, and then I was a professional musician from 1980 onwards.
Were you a religious person?
Prior to Ken's birth, I would have said yes, but after Ken's illness, it was tough. Yeah, and then being involved in soccer, and then particularly the music business, I really lost the head altogether.
Yeah,
unfortunately,
it wasn't the place for queuing up for Sunday Mass. When a friend offered you 2 tickets to Medjugorje, were you jumping at the opportunity, or
no? I felt it was the last thing that I needed in my life at the time, was a pilgrimage. I'd been away from my faith for 8 years. I hadn't been inside a Catholic church.
Yes.
And the only reason I accepted the offer was that Anne and I were married in 1972, and we spent our honeymoon in the former Yugoslavia in a little place called Savtat, which is quite close to the airport in Dubrovnik. And the guy, after a half an hour of trying to persuade me to go, his final statement was, you know what, David, on the way home from Medjugorje, we'll stop at a little place you've never heard of before called Savtat.
Yeah. And
we'll have dinner and we'll have Mass. And I remember saying to him, no interest in Mass, but dinner in Savtat is too good to pass up.
You eventually got persuaded to go in as part of a healing session. Is that what they call it?
Yeah.
What happened during that to you physically?
Well, first of all, I ridiculed. We had a wonderful priest from Chicago called Father Peter Mary Rookie, who's got great intercessory powers of healing. Met him at the airport. Absolutely had a terrible time with him, because he represented everything that I didn't have in my life, which was love and peace.
Yes.
And he was conducting a healing service in the graveyard, of all places, at the back of the church. And my wife Anne kept trying to persuade me to have a blessing, but not interested. As I said, I was with 165 religious maniacs at the time. So after 2 hours, I decided to get it over with. So Father Rookie put a crucifix in my hand. He anointed my forehead with holy oil, placed his hands on my head, and then I collapsed into a state that they call resting in the spirit.
Yes.
And I was in that state for 20 minutes. And when I got up off the ground, I was looking up into the face of Senator Donny Cassidy.
Of all people.
Who was, of all people, not the prettiest face to be looking at. But I didn't know what happened. Like, I couldn't understand how I ended up on the ground. And I took 2 paces back to Donny and said, Donny, who hit me?
Yes.
And he said to me, Parks, he said, the Holy Spirit is with you.
Right.
You've been out for 20 minutes.
What happened when you got back to see your doctor in Dublin?
Well, I'd been with him 2 days before going to Medjugorje, pleading with him for medication to try and take away the pain. I was 99 pounds in weight. I looked like death warmed up. He had to sign an insurance waiver to allow me to travel. So when Anne and I presented ourselves 2 days after coming back from Medjugorje, he looked up from his table and he just said to me, David, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. And then he invited me to go into hospital to have some tests, which we did. And then 10 days after that, he called to say that there was no sign of Crohn's disease in my body.
At all?
It totally disappeared, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Just vanished?
Like that, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And is there a known cure for Crohn's disease?
No. No, they can try and keep it under control or try and make it quality of life.
But not disappear?
But nothing.
So how did you feel when you heard that news?
It's a strange feeling because I went to Medjugorje not looking for anything, Ryan.
Yeah.
I went because it was to be my last holiday with Anne. And to experience no vomiting, no diarrhea, and no cramping pain. But it was really the day after the healing that I realised something had happened.
Was it a miracle, do you think, David?
Sorry?
Was it a miracle?
Well, I classify it as a miracle, yeah. And many people would do. Many doctors, doctors that I would meet as I do my concerts all over the world, would say it's definitely a miracle, yeah.
And what about you, David? Do you attribute your recovery to Medjugorje as a miraculous event, or just something that you just copped on?
Well, to be honest with you, there's not many people who's on methadone in Ireland who come off, you know, so I really do believe the life myself and my wife live at the minute that it's divine help. It helps us to stay away from drugs, you know.
So that's changed your whole life. Yeah. And how do you answer skeptics? Because it'd be hard to be skeptical talking to you, I have to say.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like what Maureen said. Everybody has their opinion of things that happen in life. And I have the great privilege of working in Medjugorje. I work for Marian Pilgrimages there. So I would see skeptics on a daily basis. But there is that peace within Medjugorje. Like, I see me arriving on a bus every week, kicking and screaming and fighting. And then within 2 days, there's this peace that, it's like this if Our Lady takes us, a real mother takes us to her son, and that's the way it is for me. And one of the messages of Our Lady was that she came to Medjugorje to say that Jesus loves us.
And that's the message. Well, we're going to leave it there, but thank you so much for coming in and telling us your stories this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, Damien and David, thanks so much. And also to Maureen and Louise, thank you. So there you are, that's where we're going to leave it. Medjugorje, What It Means to Me, is also available in most bookshops. Now, that is it, ladies and gentlemen, for tonight's show.